Here. Present.
Here.
Here.
Paul Pickey,
Here.
Aileen McCann-Coleman,
Present.
Steve Chapman,
Here.
Joe DeForest,
Present.
Charlie Ripley,
Present.
Joseph Biden,
Here.
Elaine Daly,
Here.
Timothy Lattimore,
Here.
Michael Video,
Here.
Ryan Foley,
Present.
Pat Malone.
Here. At this time, if you'd please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of prayer in honor of the death of Dr. Nicholas DeSocio, who served in the U.S. Air Force as a dentist and served the community for over 40 years through his dental practice. Mildred Millie Guzlak delivered mail to the county office building for many years. And Howard Zach, brother of Jody Nickerson, IT employee. He served 10 years in the U.S. Navy, serving during Desert Storm.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to acknowledge another passing. Thomas Lennox, who was for many years an arborist, did an excellent job with all the trees that with our urban forest. So he'll be sorely missed.
Thank you, Mr. Lattimore. We have no public hearing, no proclamations, so we'll get right into the presentations for the draft shared services plan.
On the proclamations, this weekend we had the 50th anniversary for the class of 1968. Auburn, or Mount Carmel, Central, East, and West, and Ginger Sheffy is here. She used to be our Union chieftain, and she put it all together. Thank you very much for a wonderful weekend.
And Timmy was our class president.
Imagine that. Mr. Wood, you want to?
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're going to have to get a taller one of these. 2x4s. I'll put it in next year's budget. Mr. Chair, I'm happy to present to the legislature our draft shared services plan. As you know, this is something we've been working on for some time. 2 years ago, New York State adopted in the governor's budget a requirement for all 57 counties in the state to develop a shared services plan. We had to form a panel that was comprised and led by the chair or by the CEO of the county. The CEO was defined in statute as either the county executive, the chairman of the legislature, or a county administrator or manager in a charter form of government. So in our form of government, that is the chairman of the legislature. And the panel was made up of the mayor of the city of Auburn, the mayors of all the villages, and the town supervisors. So we had a panel of 33 people that have been meeting all summer to develop this plan. The requirements for the plan are that we identify recurring tax savings opportunities. It's important to recognize that not every service and not every proposal in this plan is a county-wide plan, but there's also opportunities for smaller collaborations between municipalities themselves that doesn't include the county, or in a couple of cases, collaborations between the city and the county. The plan must include a certificate of savings that has been prepared for the chairman to execute. The state has offered matching funds for documented savings after the first year of implementation. What that means and how the state defines that is January 1st to December 31st. A project has to be completed within that specific calendar year, started and completed with documented savings to be eligible for reimbursement. Our next steps are that the plan has to be submitted to the state prior to September 15th, and then prior to October 15th, I have to make another public presentation of the plan. To date, we've held 5 panel meetings. We had an orientation where we met with the panelists and introduced them to the process. We had several sessions focused on highway and public works, assessment, human resources, energy. We discussed the potential expansion of our healthcare consortium from a intermunicipal agreement to an Article 47 if we can meet the threshold requirements for doing so. We looked at joint purchasing of energy procurement. We looked at consolidation of town and village justice courts. And at the end of all of that, last week or the week before, we met and reviewed the draft plan with the panelists. Tonight we're presenting it to you. We're required to hold 3 public hearings, which we will hold throughout the county, in the north, south, and in the center. Those have been scheduled for next week. One in Moravia, one in Moravia, one in Ira, and one here in Auburn. And it would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge and thank all of the people who've worked on this throughout the summer, starting with all of the panel members who've been available and participating in the process, the Onondaga BOCES staff who've made their facility available, and their technical staff who've supported us in setting up our presentations and microphones and everything there. The citizen has covered it very well. We've tried to keep the public as informed as possible with sharing drafts and outlines and documents that we shared with the panelists online. Municipal staff, not just at the county, but at all levels, towns, villages, at the city who've supported analyzing these projects. We've had several people from the state come to meet with us to review whether certain projects qualified. And we certainly appreciate their time for that. And then we had a couple of guest speakers that came and discussed how projects fit and were developed in other places. In Chemung County, the Public Works Commissioner, who simultaneously serves as the Commissioner of Public Works in the city and another town, came and discussed their 10-year evolution in shared services. And Barb Blanchard from MEGA came to talk about how energy procurement through MEGA has been certified by the Department of State and incorporated in a number of plans that were submitted last year. Our project team worked for most of the last 6 weeks on this while trying to keep everything else afloat. Steve and Lynn have been working incredibly hard on this. Lori and Monica have been working with us to schedule and facilitate all of the meetings. And Bill also made a presentation at the highway portion of the workshop about their experience with shared services in the North Country. So a lot of people have been working really hard on this, and hopefully you'll be happy with the results that we produced. We had a number of other key contributors from the city manager and his staff, a number of other department heads who led various sessions throughout the workshops, and we also had a graduate intern who helped facilitate and set up and support our efforts. I wanted to take a minute to outline what the legislature's role in this process is. The statute says that we're required, that the CEO is required to make a presentation on the panel to the legislature. The legislature reviews the certified tax saving projections. The legislature can issue an advisory report with recommendations via a majority vote, and then the chair of the legislature can either modify the plan to reflect those recommendations or attach them to the report. We have a draft resolution before you that acknowledges the tax savings projections and recommends approval by the Shared Services Panel. I think it's incredibly important to note that nothing in this plan is binding. The requirements are that we have these panel meetings, that we develop proposals, and that we submit a plan. Anything that's in the plan, if we're able to complete and can document savings, is eligible to be submitted for reimbursement. Nothing in the plan is required to be done. So as we talk about some of the projects that haven't been fully flushed out or require additional approval of the legislature, I think it's important to keep in mind that if we don't put things in the plan, they're not eligible to be submitted for reimbursement. So we have some things that we're working on with the city that are that we think are opportunities. If we're able to execute them and pull them off, then there's an opportunity to submit them for reimbursement. But nothing in this plan binds the county to anything going forward. We have 9 shared services, and I'm not going to read them all to you because I'm going to go through them one by one as we move forward. And the 9 shared services reflect an estimated tax savings projection of $1 million in the first year, and about 1.1, almost 1.2 in 2020. The first project that we discussed was joint purchasing for materials in the public works arena. We thought it was best to focus on stone and salt, as those are the largest ticket items that all of the highway departments and public works departments purchase. Lynn calculated the numbers on here, taking our total quantity purchases and realizing that between the city and the county, if we aggregated those purchases together, we would increase our purchase amount by almost 2.5 times. So we spend roughly $800,000 on stone and salt. The city spends about $1 million, and the other municipalities spend about $800,000. So we estimated a projection here that if we aggregated the purchase, that we could save 10%. The way purchasing is currently done is that we do bid these materials out, and we piggyback it, so that allows the municipalities to get the same price that we pay. But our estimate, our hypothesis is that if we bid out the entire amount, that we can drive the price down. So rather than them just piggybacking on our price, we put out an RFP for the total amount, and then everybody gets a better price based on that. The second shared services we propose creating is an equipment inventory that allows for awareness of specialized equipment. Right now, in isolated pockets of the county, highway departments routinely support each other. They loan each other equipment. On paving, you'll see a number of towns working together. But some towns have equipment that they need. Some towns rent equipment when they need it. And the idea here is that if we build an inventory of equipment, we know when people are either using it or not using it. That would allow for sharing. Or more importantly, when their replacement schedules are, so that if the county and several towns are all buying plow trucks in a given year, if we bought them together, that aggregated purchase would again drive the price down versus a couple of towns each buying one on their own. So we don't have a direct estimate on savings for this one, but we do anticipate that could yield some savings that if it came to fruition in 2019, we would be able to submit for reimbursement. We also looked at expanding the Cayuga County Healthcare Consortium. This one's a challenge because our limitation is limited by state statute. Right now, the Healthcare Consortium, as most of you know, is comprised of the county, the city, the community college, and soil and water. And we have about 1,650 covered lives. In order to create a formalized healthcare consortium under Article 47 of the Finance Law, we would need 2,000 members. Our projections of the municipalities who are interested in joining doesn't quite get us there. But nevertheless, we do estimate that if we could get to a waiver to create an Article 47 consortium, we estimate that we could drop their costs by roughly 3%. It may be more, it may be less. We didn't spend a lot of time rigorously analyzing these projections, and we were conservative in our estimates. What we saw when we looked at the plans that were submitted last year is that there were some very high overinflated projections in a number of projects. What we've learned in the year is that that didn't matter because the Department of Budget is promulgating their regulations of how they're going to reimburse these projects. So, we take our best estimate at what we think the savings are, and then if we are able to develop a project and implement it, we'll document those savings and submit them. This one will require some type of either change to legislation, which could happen next year based on how many other counties included similar projects that also wouldn't qualify, or there are other avenues we could look at, like expanding to partner with another county or another school district to try to get over that threshold number. So used to Steve flipping the slides for me. As I mentioned, Barb Blanchard from Mega came and made a presentation about the energy procurement purchasing option. At present, there are several villages in the county that are already participating in this, several others who are in the process of completing their assessment to see what their energy savings would be. But we did calculate the tax savings here to be approximately $70,000 to $80,000 for those that would be new to the program. And we did submit our information to see what type of savings could be yielded from our participation in Mega. We've also been going down some other paths to see what other savings opportunities we would have through other energy procurement. Our contract is up this year, and so one way or another we'll be doing something and bringing some proposal forward to you. Mega has been pre-approved by the Department of State as a approved shared service, so any savings that are yield in the first year would be reimbursable from the Division of Budget. We had a really great session on shared services in the assessment area, and there's a lot of communication errors that are made in discussing this that we want to be careful, and I think Kelly did a really great job in explaining that we are not talking about countywide assessment. What we are talking about is expanding the capacity of the county to contract with municipalities who want to contract with us for a range of options. And that could include being full countywide assessment like we do in Moravia and Niles. It could also include a menu of other options that are less than full assessment, such as data collection, exemption administration, appraisal services, or the full boat of everything. It was really important for us to begin to get a sense from the municipalities of what their level of interest is in this for several reasons. One, statewide, all of the assessors' appointments are up next year. Two, to the extent that they're interested in contracting with us at the end of those terms, it gives us enough lead time to expand our capacity to do so with a reasonable assurance that we'll have a contract and a revenue stream to fund that. While we don't have specific savings here, what we do anticipate is that if enough towns chose to come with us, the aggregate of what it would cost us to hire somebody on a full-time basis versus what they're each paying cumulatively on a part-time basis might result in savings for them. And that has been the experience with some of the other counties that have implemented this. But I want to emphasize we're not proposing countywide assessment like what exists in Tompkins. What we're proposing is increasing our opportunity and our capacity to contract with those municipalities who would like to contract with us for services. We also looked at a number of, we had a session on town and village justice courts. There wasn't a specific proposal that came out of this, but there's an interest in exploring options. The town and village of Moravia currently just moved into sharing a facility, a court facility. They also have the same two judges. So to the extent that there was an opportunity there for the village to dissolve the court and allow the town to handle it, that is one option. There was also a couple of other towns indicated that they had really great facilities that they would be happy to share with other courts if they wanted to hold their court in their facilities. And the village of Port Byron also talked, or excuse me, the village of Weedsport, I think it was, talked about wanting to explore a joint new building with the town, either for the court or for an entire municipal complex. But as I said, those are, I think those are much larger multi-year projects that likely wouldn't be completed in this year, but we wanted to include them to the extent that it gave some additional credibility to applying for grant funds and planning funds as they sought to continue to go down this road in the future. One of the projects that I assume you may have a number of questions about is the sports complex at Falcon Park. And this has come up relatively quickly, and I'm actually glad Brian's here, so if you have questions, I'll just kick it to him. But the reason this is in the plan, and the reason it's really shown as a county project in the plan, is because the way shared service, the way the law is structured, a shared service can only exist between two municipal entities. So the college on its own doesn't qualify, but the county does as its fiscal sponsor. So the way we projected savings here is that the college commissioned a study to build a sports complex adjacent to its campus on Franklin Street, and it came out to just under $15 million. Now, when you subtract out SUNY's 50% portion of that, it would be roughly a $7.5 million local share. Now, I'm not saying that we've committed to doing that project in any way, but if that's our starting point, that this is what the college is looking at, then the way we calculate the costs is that we assume a 15-year debt service at 3% interest and figure out what our annual what the county or the college's annual payment would be, which was about $615,000 on an annual basis for the life of the loan. The project that they're looking at with the city is a roughly $3 million project. So again, if we take out the 50% that would be covered by SUNY, the college, aka the county's portion for shared services purposes, would be $1.5 million. Assumed at the same 15-year, 3% debt service, we'd be looking at $125,000 for an annual savings of about $490,000. So if this project is able to be done, and it's timed in a way that the obligations of the college to the city start in January, and then we would be looking at a roughly $490,000 savings that would be reimbursed by the state through the shared services. That would take that $1.5 million local share of the project almost down to $1 million, which the college would be able to cover out of its operating budget. So I'll take any questions on this one if you want, or I can finish up the next couple and come back.
This is a question with Brian, if I may. So is SUNY giving the 50% rental lease reimbursement with no limit? They've talked about limiting that.
What's that?
That there had been talk that SUNY would limit the reimbursement, the total amount.
The limit is based on state allocation.
Right.
Related to the way that rental works for community college in the state of New York is the executive budget comes up with a flat allocation, and then the obligations across the 30 community colleges that go towards that allocation then can go up to a 50% match. Currently, and in recent years, that allocation has been closer to 43% on total rental, but it does vary. The allocation itself on the executive budget has not increased in a number of years, which is why it's gotten what we traditionally referred to as a 50% match, down closer to about 43%.
So it's unlikely that this will get 50% match.
It'll likely be closer to 43, 44%.
I don't know if that makes a big difference in the numbers, but it would be good. Whatever the true, accurate idea would be good to include in here.
Justin, the debt obligation that you mentioned, are we saying that the county and the college are one and the same just for the purposes of this? Because that obligation would be assumed by the college, not by the county, and so.
Yeah, I want to be careful how we talk about this, because we're working really hard to make this project qualify. The county is the college's fiscal sponsor, so the county is under our umbrella. For shared services purposes, the savings that we're projecting is that 50% of the capital costs, whether they be through the building the new facility or leasing from the county, would be a savings through us. Operationally, that wouldn't necessarily increase the ask from the community college to the county. Operationally, they've got that in their operating budget to go forward.
Okay.
So it goes back to what I was saying at the outset, which is that the college isn't eligible for shared services on its own, but under our umbrella, we think it can be. We met with the special project coordinator, our director from the governor's office, about the project, who's overseeing this whole program, and he was optimistic that we could frame this in a way that could fit, but it wasn't a firm commitment. This is certainly in line with what the governor is hoping to see. Multi-million-dollar savings of capital expenditures by sharing existing facilities and coordinating programming.
The only thing I want to say on this is you're right, this part did happen pretty fast. And I've heard from a lot of people that go to that stadium that aren't happy about this, because it is the most beautiful natural grass stadium in that league, basically. And I think they've actually been voted that before, the best. So, I mean, the taxpayers ought to have a little something to say about this too, and there's a lot of them that aren't happy about it, so.
I'm all in favor of the city and the county and the school getting together. It was many years ago that Arby Hatfield sat where Pat is, and the city and the county got together and upgraded that whole stadium down there. I know that one of the point persons is Sue Savage, and her father sat in these chairs. Is she going to help manage the shared service?
Yeah,
functions down there?
Sue set up the meeting with us, with the representative of the executive office, to try to figure out how we could make this project work. So we've been doing the outreach at the state level to frame this in a way that allows them to approve it, and I think we're on the right track in doing that. No other questions on this one. I'll go on to the next couple. And Mr. Dennison, I do want to emphasize that this, being in this plan, doesn't commit us to any funding at this point or to any project. I want to emphasize that anything that requires your approval will be brought back to you, but anything that's not in the plan is not eligible for savings. So anything that we're talking about or discussing or trying to do, it makes better sense to throw it in so that if we do pursue it, it's eligible for savings in the future. And that's a great lead-in into the public safety. Yes, Mr. Didio?
Who decides on the, if we're going to use turf or natural grass?
I believe that the proposal, as is currently being developed between the city and the college, is to use turf, and the reason being that it would take the facility from being a roughly 3-month-a-year facility to being a 9 or 10-month-a-year facility. It would allow for spring semester baseball prior to the minor league season. It would allow for soccer and lacrosse seasons extended into both the spring and the fall. I don't know if I have all of the specific athletic seasons correct, but I believe I hit the sports, softball, baseball.
Yeah, I intend to provide an overview of the project.
Perfect. So you'll have another crack at this one. The next project that we included in the proposal is the shared public safety facility. And this is another project that's in a preliminary phase. The Public Works Committee voted in the spring to authorize me to enter into due diligence, and I really believe that's the phase that we're still in here. We haven't received hard numbers from the city yet in terms of what we'd be looking at for lease space, but to the extent that we can try to leverage additional state resources by including this in the plan as we continue to conduct due diligence is the purpose for submitting it. The proposal is, as many of you are aware, for the city to build a new fire station out at the Save-A-Lot Plaza on Seminary. There had been reserved space in the concept drawings for emergency management and the Emergency Operations Command, and we've discussed also including the 911 center in that as well, which would free up much of the basement almost, and simultaneously and separate from shared services, we're looking at consolidating the Office of the Aging in the Boyle Center, which would give us a full empty floor in the county office building. Not related to shared services, but as you know, the value of that as we go forward and look at our other capital needs might become very useful. So we don't have a specific savings number on this. This is more about operational advantages and trying to leverage additional state grants in the pursuit of implementing this project. And lastly is the City of Auburn and Cayuga County shared court space at the historic post office. As at least some of you know, the city and the Office of Court Administration has been expressing interest in expanding and adding a second city courtroom into the historic post office building in the area where we currently have WIC. We have been looking at alternative locations for WIC so that we could put together a feasibility of that relocation, and B, a cost estimate that we would need to negotiate in order to make sense of whether that could be done or not. Our cost estimate projections here are a couple $100,000, and we calculate that based on the saved cost for the city if they left and had to build a new court, as well as the lost revenue to the county if they did that, which would leave us with a vacant building, which would create other opportunities for us, but also other long-term revenue hole. So based on the capital cost of building a new court at $3 million, we arrived at that number based on the courthouse of similar size that was recently built in Watertown, assuming 30 years at 3%, and then the lost revenue to the county, and then netting off of that the rent that we would have to pay to add if we moved WIC to another location. So again, this is very preliminary. This would require a number of contract proposals and lease agreements that we would need to bring back to you for approval through the typical approval process. But including it to the extent that our due diligence is successful and we create opportunities would then allow for some reimbursement at the state level if we're able to do it within the prescribed 12-month period.
Justin, am I understanding, with the historical post office, would there be upfront expenditures on renovating and converting, and would that $200,000 be recognized in the first year?
The $200,000 would be our one-year savings. We have not factored into this build-out numbers because I believe that would be funded by the Office of Court Administration, so it wouldn't impact our savings or costs. What the other costs that we would have that aren't factored into here but are something that we're aware of and that we would be part of the negotiation is that We recently renovated that entire space over there for WIC, and I don't think the state would pay to move WIC to another space. So that relocation cost would have to be part of the negotiation with the city or the Office of Court Administration so that we would have a suitable and comparable space in another location at no cost to us.
In regards to public safety, our lakes have been inundated with issues. Aqua has some piping that's near our county, and I'd like to see us shared services that make sure that we have not duplicate or not a backup, but triple. We need to have Aqua's water besides Cayuga Lake, Owasco Lake, and I'd like to see us work with Onondaga County maybe to bring a pipe from Weedsport maybe to Montezuma. Could that not be public safety issues?
Well, there's a number of affects a number of areas. Affects economic development, public works and infrastructure, public health and safety. So to the extent that I know there is the countywide water study that's going on, and I don't know yet if that's been looked at in there, but I can certainly check with Water and Sewer Authority and pass that recommendation along to see if it's whether they've made a feasibility assessment of that connection.
There's grants available.
I can speak to that a little bit, just to ease Mr. Lattimore so he can sleep tonight. The Water and Sewer Authority is indeed looking at options right now, and they've had some proposals presented to them at their last meeting.
There are some grant timelines that I don't know whether soil and water or sewer and water are going to hit those, but there's money available, and we should be on it.
We're looking at options, trying to find the best one.
Thank you, Mr. Whitman.
So the next step on this process is 3 public hearings next week, as I outlined earlier. And then we'll have a final panel meeting on August 17th at the BOCES. Following that, the plan has to be submitted to the state by September 15th, and a final public presentation has to be presented publicly. And I don't know if that's at the legislature meeting or if that's just another public hearing. We'll have to confirm that. I don't think the guidance was clear. But there'll be another public presentation of the plan in the fall that seeks to update and incorporate the recommendations of the legislature, of the public, through the public hearings and that process.
Why, just out of curiosity, public hearings are at 4 o'clock? I mean, people aren't home from work yet. Why are we having a public hearing in south, center, and northern part of the county for people that maybe all right up there because we're all farmers, but I mean,
I think they farm in the south too.
Well, maybe the south too, exactly. But what I'm just saying, there's a lot of people that are going to look at that and go, "Oh, 4 o'clock."
Yeah, I think when you select these opportunities, it's always going to be inconvenient for somebody. We could do them in the evening, and people would say, why don't you do them in the daytime? You could do them on the weekend, and people say, why don't you do them during the week? I think, what we're trying to do is
why don't we do these at 4 o'clock? Because some of the people sitting here are at work. Yeah. I mean, at 4 o'clock just seems really stupid, to be perfectly honest with you. It's their money. It's the taxpayers' money that we're spending. 6 o'clock, like we do meetings here. 4 o'clock, because I know what I'm going to hear when people see this. Oh, you're going to have the meeting so that nobody will show up. That's what they're going to say.
They are saying.
Well, we could look at, we don't have to only hold 3, and we could certainly look at adding another one at a later time. If that's, it's a reasonable suggestion, it's a reasonable request, and we could certainly look at adding a 4th one in an evening.
Okay, one other question, too. There's
Yes, sir.
technically 62 counties, whether you call them counties or boroughs. How come they don't have to participate?
The boroughs are basically one municipality, so they weren't subject to this. So, but yes, you're correct. There are 62.
I thought maybe it's because that's where most of our tax money goes, but
They actually pay us.
Any other questions about the plan? Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to present this on your behalf.
And thank you for all your work on that. Do we have anybody for public to be heard?
Minutes for approval, June 12th and 26th, 2018.
Move on. Second.
Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Those are carried. CCC report, Dr. Durant.
Good evening, everyone. Certainly, the presentation of the shared services plan starts to take a little momentum away from the presentation tonight related to the Falcon Park project, but we will be slightly repetitive, perhaps lay a picture that's a little bit different than what you may fully be aware of. But before I do that, we're in the last 6 weeks or so of our fiscal year that I've been talking about all year. Enrollment-wise, we are experiencing growth in the summer beyond what we expected, which is a positive thing. We budgeted this year, 17-18, for 2,500 FTE, as I've said, I think every month, and we're on pace to reach over 2,625 FTE this year. It's the first year of growth since, I believe, 2011-12, which is a positive thing for the institution. As we're looking ahead for fall, bringing in our next class, our applications have been tracking up all year, and they continue to be, as of today, nearly 3% for applications for admission. So, we're always grateful that we have, more students this year than a year ago that are considering Cayuga Community College as their choice for higher education. And we're also hopeful that even more students this year will select us for that choice and be enrolling in the fall. So our continued focus is on efforts for recruitment, orientation, and registration as we look ahead for next year. I also want to just take a moment and recognize that one of our college trustees is with me tonight, Trustee Klink. Thank you for being here. In the recent weeks, you've been able to hopefully read, learn, hear about the Falcon Park exploration. What, may not be clear to some, and I'll own part of it, is that this is not something that is going quickly. The exploration of athletic fields, the talk about athletic fields for Cayuga Community College, as I understand it, goes back decades without a solution and without it getting done. When I came here, one of the challenges presented to me by some of you, by some of the other members of the community, is to figure out a way to be able to have athletic fields, to give the students the facilities in which they deserve, and to help increase the presence, the notoriety of the institution, to want to attract potential student athletes from a distance to Cayuga Community College. Helps enrollment, helps the community, helps with our reputation, and helps continue to put us on a map in a different way than perhaps we've been. We've done due diligence throughout the college property, the nature trail, working with a local school district. Superintendent Perazzolo has been tremendous. We've done due diligence looking at county properties, at city properties, and at the end of the day, the best facility that would be state-of-the-art at the institution that would also fit into our campus modernization plan is nearly $15 million. And candidly, I thought it would be irresponsible to move that project forward, even though it would start to spread out our campus, it would start to change, I think, the entire field for the campus. It does not sound like the responsible choice. Exploration with the city results in something that there's a beautiful asset there in Falcon Park that currently gets utilized between Memorial Day, if you will, and Labor Day. In JCAA athletics, the college, our competitions go from Labor Day to Memorial Day. No better way to be able to work together than with two entities that are important to this community that don't overlap, to be able to coexist and maximize the utilization of a facility at less than $3 million compared to $15 million. when we're looking at the opportunity for turf, think about a day like today. Rain all day. Not atypical for a certain fall day or a certain spring day in late March, middle of March, when college athletics are going. Our lacrosse teams would have played their games today. This past spring, when we went from winter essentially to summer, my understanding is Falcon Park had a number of contests scheduled for Auburn and Large City School District to play baseball games there, and had to cancel a number of them, not just on the day there was a weather event, but for days subsequent to that otherwise wouldn't be ready because of tear up the field. In this case, we would be able to maximize that. And so from the institution's perspective, this exploration goes beyond just having something that we don't have. We're going to be able to increase our athletic offerings. We're going to add men's lacrosse back. We're going to add women's lacrosse back. And our new baseball program that we're going to be rolling out next spring will be able to ensure that they will be able to play on that field. We have an agreement with Falcon Park for baseball now. This past spring, by the time the field would have been ready, the college season would have essentially been over and not been able to utilize that field. That's a problem that deserves a solution. This is one of those potential solutions. The other thing that sometimes gets lost when we're talking about athletic fields, and I'm not just talking about intercollegiate athletics, the vision also goes beyond that. Think about what the institution is known for. The institution is known for programs in media arts, telecommunications, broadcasting, sports management, business. We have mandatory requirements in our degrees for applied learning opportunities and internships. We already have a history of having a number of interns participate and work with Falcon Park. This is going to give students an experience beyond what they already are able to do in a different way. Adding the additional sports creates more volume of opportunity for students to be able to engage and support in a way that otherwise is being considered. So we're looking at this as not just athletics. We're looking at this as an extension of our academic program to be able to support our students and to be able to enhance their experience. And when you look at it all together, with a potential opportunity for reimbursement from SUNY, and a potential opportunity to be able to spread out a debt service and a commitment over a number of years, and a potential opportunity to participate in shared services, in addition to that, this is something that the college could potentially, if we're able to successfully reach agreement with the city, and if their elected body supports it, this is something that can go from what's been a 30-year conversation to potentially breaking ground as early as the fall and being up and ready to go next spring. It's ambitious. It may seem fast for some, but I can tell you this, we've spent countless hours on this exploration and analysis for the last 2 years. And it comes to a point now where it's just an opportunity that needs to be explored, needs to be public. I appreciate the different pieces of opinion and feedback on it. But think about what you challenge us to do as leadership of the college. And I think it checks a number of those boxes. So I just appreciate your openness to the project. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Dennison.
You talk about bringing back men's and women's lacrosse
Yep.
and stuff like that. I guess my question is, you also at one time had football.
Right.
Why did these sports disappear in the first place?
We didn't have athletic fields. You can't compete in a marketplace if you don't have the facilities. My understanding is when the school had lacrosse a number of years ago, they played their home games at a high school in Syracuse.
Well, I guess the second part of that question is, you got Holland Field. I mean, I don't know. I can't see tearing apart the most beautiful grass baseball field and all of that league when you've got $10 million or whatever it costs the Auburn taxpayers to build a facility that's like opening your back door. I mean,
Absolutely.
why can't that be? And this whole stuff about the rain and all this, I don't disagree to you to a certain extent, but turf fields can only take so much rain. And they also only have about a 10-year lifespan. And a lot of your professional and college, major college teams are going away from turf fields because of the injuries that it's causing. They're going back to natural grass. So, I mean, it's a, we can have this argument for hours each way. But I just look at Holland Field and I'm going, makes no sense to me. I mean, there's got to be some sort of agreement that could be reached there. to do all this, in my opinion.
I won't speak for the school district, but it's a great question. I think a point that should be highlighted. I was at city council last week, and Councilor Carvajal made the reference, because I believe at that point she was on the school board. And she mentioned that prior to her, the utilization, the number of events at Holland Stadium was something in the 20 a year range. Since Holland Stadium has opened, we have been working with them to try to get time. We have been able to find some time on Sunday afternoons. We've been able to find 45 minutes in the middle of the day, because the gym class utilization, you're talking about modified through varsity, you're talking about men's and women's sports, you're talking about multiple sports, and you're talking about students, whether it be high school or college, that need to go to class between the morning and early afternoon, because when you're looking at competition, even at the college level, travel time would be noon or after to be able to play evening contests, whether it be 40 minutes away or whether it be 2 hours away on a weeknight. So our student athletes have to compress their academics. They must be full-time. We encourage them to spread it out and be able to take it out through most mornings if they can. So you're looking at a number of entities that all need the facility between 2 o'clock and 10 o'clock, not to mention the other community groups, marching band, this, that, and the other, that utilize it. So I understand the sentiment goes to, we already have one. But there's realistic, legitimate issues with being able to coexist and utilize it. So I would flip it back and say, what could the community do, the city do, if it had 2 facilities? What could it do to attract people in the summer for potential tournaments? What could it do to be able to bring people in a different way that may not be able to be accomplished today? Lots of assets in the community that are utilized very well. The goal here from the college ultimately is to be able to leverage one. We don't need to do these things alone. We view it as the responsible choice to be able to maximize what's already there and to be able to show how city government, county government, and an institution can work together.
Mr. Lattimore.
Mr. Strand, you know I've been a supporter of the college, and you know we have a committee system up here, and normally it goes through government ops. I know that you've been excused from going through those steps. You know, I would have liked to have seen us utilize the former government that we have instead of just getting together. But anyways, the you know my passion is the IAGT, right. And I know that Jefferson County just got a $2 million grant up there for technology. I know I stood with Schumer with grants at OCC in front of Burn Dairy in Syracuse for updating the tech, and I just heard the president speak about NASA and how much money they got. I'd like to see the cooperation between our federal, state, and local governments to bring that technology back to life, which would fill the seats at the community college. We're the only ones that have it. I don't know why we're not breathing life into it.
I hear you.
Mr. Didio.
Brought up a point a couple of times in the past about student housing. And where are we at with that? I think we're missing the boat on not having some type of student housing. I talked to the basketball people. I've talked to several coaches that used to be there, and I talked to different people as far as the other community colleges, maybe 3, that student housing is at the top of the list. Where's ours?
Well, you know, we have talked about this. We talked about this actually when basketball came up, when you had your meeting at the college. I think it was back in October, and a number of other times. So, you know, student housing was an institutional priority going back a long period of time. And, you know, one of the accomplishments I'm most proud of in my professional career prior to arriving here at Cayuga was being in a position to lead the development of student housing from not having a residential campus to 408 beds with the leadership of that college. And when I came here, I evaluated the studies that had been done previously. And the studies and the needs capacity themselves that are coming back from the research that had been done does not support and did not support at the time a viable student housing option for Cayuga Community College. We currently have, the opportunity for nearly 100 students in Latimer Hall. I'm not comparing an off-campus environment to what an on-campus environment would be. But when they did a needs analysis, when it came to the Auburn campus, the need capacity looked somewhere between 90 and 170 students. If you already have 100 students, and you're not able to glean that there's necessarily more at that time, it may not be the right moment in time for it. I can tell you this, as the new president that came in here 3 years ago with trustees that have explored housing a number of times, with community members that have talked about housing a number of times, it took a little bit more resolve to tell you we're not ready and it's not the right time than it would have been able to say, let's go do it. In addition to that, we can talk about the landscape of higher education across the state. When housing was being explored at the original time in the late 90s, I believe, there might have been only 10 or so New York State community colleges that had housing at the time. Today, I believe it's over 20. And in recent years, there have been institutions, unfortunately, who have built housing to a capacity that was at a different time that they thought they had, that is now not full. There was a story nationally just a week ago that came out that another community college in New York State actually was selling their student housing for other purposes. So I caution people when it comes to, yes, it might have felt, heard, sounded like, and may have been the right choice at a particular time as an investment or risk and an opportunity. I can tell you it hasn't been since I've been here. I also can tell you, because I've said this to our trustees, I've said this to anyone, you want to increase your likelihood for successful student housing? You need to increase your athletics, you need to have extracurricular offerings, you have to have the FTE in place to be able to support a 24/7 community. Much different college, many more resources to make sure it's successful. Because the only way I'll ever advocate in front of you or anyone else that student housing makes sense is if I have the confidence that we have the infrastructure in place that when that parent, that supporter, that student chooses to enroll with us, that we're going to be in the best position to make them be successful. Absent of that, you will never hear me talk about adding student housing. I've seen it done. I've seen it be successful. It's not the right time for Cayuga.
Mr. Whitman.
I'm going to be in the minority here on a few things. Not unusual. I'm not college educated. Maybe I don't get it. What is a community college?
What is a community college?
What is it there
How
for?
much time do we have? So the community college itself is an institution that sets itself up in a comprehensive way to be able to provide access to higher education that's affordable. I'll be brief. I can go on forever. And that ultimately mirrors opportunities for the community in both the areas of workforce development and training, and provide pathway for transfer to baccalaureate options, which we do. 60% of our graduates are intended to transfer to four-year institutions. You look as a mission to support your local community. At the same time, you try to create yourself in a way that takes open access institution of students, support them so that student can reach his or her goal. And ultimately, we work together, and we're in a more vibrant way. I always talk about a community college in a simple way. We should be the educational, social, and cultural hub of this community. That's how we should be seen, and that's what we should be striving towards.
And I agree. I feel that the community college is here to help the community. It's aiding your own community to help itself. Get higher education, help the workforce, help struggling families get their higher education, get on their feet, with help from the community, with help from the taxpayers. I start to get a little antsy when we're talking about student housing. Now we're not talking about local. We're bringing people in. I am not a sports person, so I understand where the sports fit in. However, at what expense and at what cost? And in my mind, that's not what the college is there for. I understand the draw, but it makes me wonder at what point is the college outgrowing itself? We're getting too big to support the size we are, so we want to get bigger to bring in more, when maybe we should just stay smaller and focus on what the intention was in the first place. And that's just my 2 cents. Thought I'd throw it out there. I have before, but it's been a while.
Well, we could talk about being too big, but the institution 10 years ago was about 500 FTE larger than what it is today.
Yeah.
When I talk about growth, I'm talking about from last year to this year.
I think that's a good sign. The
Well,
community
it
can either
is, but
afford to go somewhere else or is doing well.
You know, one of the things that I think we need to be mindful of, and I'm just going to be completely candid. The institution of the last 7, 8 years went through a lot. And over the last 3 years, starting my 4th year, and I'm working with the trustees, working with others, we've been trying to do what I thought is asked of us, is to position us in a place that no longer can look backwards, but can look ahead. And, you know, yes, we have tripled our fund balance. Yes, we have met our enrollment metrics the last couple of years and on pace to do it next year. But 3 months ago, even with all that looking ahead, all that decision making, all that, 3 months ago, in about a week and a half period of time when we did not know what the state of New York was going to do with the chargeback methodology, the end result decision in the executive budget was the difference of nearly $1 million swing of losing money compared to where our budget was this year. So all the due diligence we put into, all the scrutiny, all the managing as tightly as we can't control every variable. We try to, but it was a much different conversation with you, it was a much different conversation with the trustees, and a much different conversation inside the walls of the institution based on what ended up happening with that chargeback methodology that I've talked about before. It would have been a different time. Now, our job is to ultimately be cautious and conservative, but be also trying to position us in a place that continues to be a place where people want to go, meets their expectations, and ultimately can thrive. You know, we've done the analysis on what it can be to add 3 sports teams, being conservative in the number of new students that go, and all the assumptions that we made. And I can assure you, the cost between tuition, the cost with percentage of those students coming from out of county, and a cost of state aid will outweigh any of the costs associated with whatever the agreement is for Falcon Park.
Mr. Pinckney.
So I may agree with you on your comments on the housing situation at this time, but in hindsight, I know you just said something about not looking back, but do you feel that Lattimore Hall was the proper situation for the community college to have housing? And if you go ahead with the Falcon Park expansion and you get more student athletes here, what are your plans for housing for them? Are we just going to have them housed throughout the city, or is the college going to have a little bit of a committed area for housing up there? And I don't mean 4 towers and over building, but tell me your thoughts on that, please.
So my thoughts are that, you know, if we're successful in adding the athletic programs, and if we're successful with a couple of the other initiatives that we have, with housing, circumstances can change and the need can improve. I know it was very definitive a few minutes ago on where we are today and where we've been with housing. I also know that if 180 beds is a feasible number, and when we anticipate that with the 100 we already have and some more student athletes, it would be more than realistic for us to have a waiting list, there might be the right opportunity to be able to do that in a couple years down the road. Circumstances change if you have more to offer and more people are utilizing. But we need to experience the pressure of supporting students that are looking for residence. We need to experience, I think, a greater need. And if we have that, then the conversation can change as soon as a couple of years from now. But I'm just letting you know, from what exists and what has existed, it wasn't the time.
Okay, so back to Lattimore Hall.
Lattimore Hall, I think, listen, we have 100 students a year that are utilizing Lattimore Hall. It's providing them probably the chance to be coming here or not. And so for the purpose of having it, over the last couple of years, we've done a number of things internally to help better support the students, to be able to focus on retaining the students, and supporting their transition. We're actually going to be adding a couple more initiatives this year to make sure that they feel the support and connectivity to the college, even though it's off campus. And that's our responsibility, just like I would say if it's on campus. You know, we have an agreement. It certainly is a private entity, but there are students, and ultimately we have a responsibility to make sure that they feel connected to what's going on the campus. And, you know, I think it's working as best it can.
Mr. Lattimore.
Doctor, I know we've had some issues with the foundation, and I'd like to be able to say we've resolved those issues. I guess it's still under some scrutiny. But I would like to see, I know there's been a couple presentations for stranded assets that are up there in Fulton to have some kind of workout to reduce the liabilities that the foundation has. Now, I know that when I ask you these questions, well, it's not me, it's not the college, it's the foundation, or it's IAGT. Well, I think that, you know, we on this board would like to see all those things working to their best. So I would like to see you push forward some of those stranded assets that are in the North Country.
You know, I hear what you're saying, and I just think that you need to hopefully appreciate and understand that there's ongoing litigation that sometimes prohibits us from being able to you know, fully talk about what's available to us or not. So I think, you know, I just ask for patience and understand that we're fully on top of it, and we're trying to manage it as best we can.
Mr. DeForest.
What I would appreciate, and not tonight, but I think it would be a great thing if everybody in this body got to hear a brief overview of the amount of staff that is required to support a 180-bed dormitory.
Yeah.
What's involved with student services and student activities and so on and so forth. Because I don't think that there's a good understanding of what's required to make all that work. I mean, it's more than just creating 180 beds.
Right, yeah, you need 24/7 public safety. So my first year here, that's the exact question I posed the institution. I created a task force that said, you can talk about the need all you want. The question you need to answer is, what would the impact be to the campus, and are you ready? I convened a task force. They went and visited a number of campuses and came back and said, these are the things that would have to be considered if we were able to do it. And if you quantify that and you say, well, if we're only going to build housing for 30 FTE, given the cost associated with that, it's going to be problematic. I have some information I'd be happy to share and pass along that's only 2 years old. Speaks to that exactly.
Mr. Dennison.
And on that same note as Joe's, it's no different with the athletics too. It'd be nice to know, you know, maintenance costs, insurances. I mean, you're going to have athletic trainers, all sorts of those things. But on the chargeback thing, and I know I've mentioned this to Fred before, and I don't know if we've ever got anywhere. If we bring in student athletes from, let's say, Oswego County,
right, that's
not really helping us that much with the bargain deal that Oswego County gets for the whole I mean, what was it, 1970, whatever, that this...
No, it is helping
contract?
us. So in the event we bring in a student from Oswego County, and there, let's just for education purposes, let's just say it's an FTE. We don't need to get into the metrics of it. That student's paying full tuition, just like they are here, right? Just like they would be from Cayuga County. We're also then billing that county the chargeback, and that chargeback is $3,700 per FTE. The piece that we don't get is a $300 capital piece. So from an operating perspective,
That was part of that contract from 1970.
from an operating
or whatever.
perspective, we are made whole every time a student comes from out of county residence, and nearly 60% of our student body comes from out of county. And as you saw on the sheet when we did the budget, you know, $3 million allocation for Cayuga County, and the out of county chargeback, I think allocation somewhere at about $5.5 or $5.6 million worth of revenue coming to the college in the budget.
I still think we should look into a contract that was in from 1970. There's got to be a way that...
Any other questions for Dr. Durant?
I'll be here all night.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, committee reports, individual legislator reports. Mr. Dennison.
I just want to remind everybody the Big Six is this week. So show up.
Thank you. Mr. Lattimore.
So I'm not the
Mr.
only
Chairman,
legislator there.
it was nice to have our 50th reunion. The city of Auburn, I think, was healthier when we had west, east, and central. So whenever the educational people make a decision to move the high school out of town, or the college wants to do something different, it does make a big impact to our overall city. So I just wanted, the decisions that we make do make a difference in the heartbeat of the city and the county.
Thank you. Any other reports? Ms. McNabb-Coleman.
I just wanted to make a comment. I had a call from a constituent today who visited and utilized the Veterans Affairs Office. He said it was the best treatment imaginable, and he said that he sent hats off to the legislature, to the Veterans Affairs Office, that it was incredible. He couldn't say enough positive things, and he just wanted to share that. So I wanted to share that all with you today.
Thank you for sharing. That's great to hear.
Sure.
Mr. Foley.
Mr. Chairman, I do have two announcements, well, the first one is today I went to a meeting with the City of Auburn for the replacement bridge on State Street. That's the one right next to Curly's, and that's going to be done in 2019. They're fleshing it out now. They presented their plan and are going to move forward. I think that's going to be a major project for the City of Auburn, and it is intertwined with the Greenway Trail that they're doing throughout the city for a walking path. There will be some labor pains with that, of course, but the initial designs look beautiful. So I did want to mention that in case there's other legislators that are from the city that care about that. It's directly in my district, that's why I attended. And secondly, I don't know if this is a good time or not to pull it up, but we can flesh this out too. I think all of us received the invitation from the White House to go there. If not, I think everyone received that. In terms of, it was an invitation to go to a county leader summit, which included leaders, executives from New York that are at the county level, so that included county legislators. It was, NISAC confirmed that it was a real invitation that was for a workshop, summit, and a White House tour at the White House in D.C. And my initial response was, I think this is pretty cool, regardless of what you might think of the administration or otherwise. With that said, for this body, there might be people that want to go to that. And I initially asked Sheila, what were our numbers looking at for lodging or mileage. She said that there was a decent chunk left. We really haven't traveled much as a body this year. We still do have NISAC coming up, but if we go what we have in past years, it really shouldn't be a problem. With that said, I just want to make sure as a body that nobody has a big issue with any legislator attending that conference, which is, I believe, a really great opportunity for anyone to go if they wanted to. And so I wanted to kind of bring that to our attention and see how it goes.
Thank you. I would suggest if you are interested, let the county administrator know so we can get some numbers together, and Sheila, so that we can get numbers together to see what's manageable in the 18 budget.
Okay.
Mr. Lattimore.
I've visited some of our elected officials when I was down there in my other capacity, and always brought back grants or money, so it's well worth it to make a presentation or to make sure that we're visible down there.
Thank you. Any other individual reports? Mr. Batman.
I just wanted to mention that it came up in the shared services plan, and I know the administrator has mentioned before the focus and the need to finally, hopefully, begin to look at our building needs. I know it's being worked on. I just want to say two things. Great, good, we need to move forward with it, and that it's important that we keep our focus on it. We have not been successful in moving that forward in the past, but we're making at least a little progress now, which is good to see. And I think meeting or two ago, Mr. Lattimore asked what's going to be our next focus, our next priority, and I would suggest that that's probably a really good one to move that forward if we can. So thank you for getting on that, and I look forward to maybe, if not resolve, at least progress.
Thank you. Other comments, Mr. Lattimore?
Well,
You're near your limit, just so you know.
I know, it's rough. I get paid big money up here, though. I gotta keep going. It said no proclamations, but I would like to have our 50th introduced to, on our website. Are we doing a website, or where are we?
We'll find out in a few minutes.
All right, County Administrator's report.
I'll keep it short tonight, Mr. Administrator, because much of what we've been working on for the last month has been related to flushing out these shared services projects. As I alluded to when we were looking at facilities, we're also in an exploratory phase of looking at the feasibility of consolidating the Office of Aging in the Boyle Center. We've been working closely with the county attorney and outside counsel on a number of fronts related to the Cayuga Indian Nation developments. We've been working with the real property and the treasurer's office and the county attorney, planning to work on some proposed updates to the PACE legislation that you passed, PACE law you passed previously. The Environmental Investment Corporation that provides the financing for those projects has proposed some updates based on updates to the state legislation. So we'll be preparing a package for you in the next couple of months to bring forward that brings us back in compliance with the law. So when you passed the law, you were in compliance, then they updated the statute, and there's some housekeeping items, and we had some questions that we were flushing out before we brought it forward. We're moving forward with we've signed the shared service agreement, or the intermunicipal agreement with the city, to move forward on the drainage project that you've approved. The construction timeline of that is a little behind schedule due to the busy construction season, but we expect contractors to be out here in about three weeks. They're hoping to start on Court Street before school starts, but if they don't, then they're going to wait until after the first day of school to start. But that will be moving forward and completed this year. We'll send out notices to all the employees. We've got a plan for handicap parking, and the city's agreed to allow county employees to park for free in the garage during the couple weeks that portions of our lot aren't available. Steve and I and outside counsel have been working to with the Cayuga County Development Corporation to finalize the loan documents to Wells College for bridge financing for the water treatment system upgrades for the carbon activation system that will be in place to prevent harmful algal blooms from getting into the water system in the village of Aurora. We have finalized the permit conditions for the broadband permit and transmitted those to New Visions. We've also developed new maps based on the phasing information that was provided to us. We're just waiting from New Visions to confirm that the phasing maps are correct, but I believe that that's all been transmitted to him, and we look forward to wrapping that up. We also spent a significant amount of time with Human Resources and Labor Council this month responding to the Supreme Court's decision in Janus v. ASME, which ruled, affected how we collect union dues. Previous state law was that whether somebody chose to join a union or not, we collected either union dues or an agency fee from them. The Supreme Court subsequently ruled earlier this month that the collection of agency fees could not be conducted without affirmative written consent. So within the first pay period following the Supreme Court decision, we communicated with each of the unions to assess which of those people in their lists in our employees that were covered by the collective bargaining units were members and which were not voluntary members. And for those that we knew were not voluntary members, we ceased those deductions, and unless they're subsequently provide written consent, then they're no longer collecting those dues from people. That's a very controversial subject and one that we wanted to deal with very impartially, without taking a political position, but just complying with the Supreme Court's decision and respecting employees' choices as the Supreme Court outlined them. So that was there was a lot of work related to that. We had communicating with all the unions on that, and we've wrapped that up this month as well. We've finalized the update to our recommended updates to the travel policy, which we will be bringing forward next month to the Government Operations Committee, and we're just preparing to send out a budget memo and start preparing the 2019 budget requests.
Mr. Lattimore.
I know I'm over my limit, Mr. Chair, but as Vice Chairman, I just like...
You get an extra one.
You get some bonus.
I get a bonus.
This is it, though.
Well, in your absence, and I hope you had a great time with your darling wife when you're on vacation, there was a signed agreement with the city. Now, the participation, that project happens to be in my district. I had to sign in your absence, but whenever there's a project or something that affects a legislator, they should be in the room from start to finish on these projects. And I mentioned something with Justin at City Hall in regards to, having that done in the future. So whether or not it's Indian Affairs or whether it's an extension of a parking lot, if it affects a legislator, and we've always had the courtesy of having the legislator in the room from start to finish so that they can inform us as legislators as exactly what they feel, other than the administrators. So in the future, if we're going to continue with this committee situation, hopefully it'll change. I don't like it the way it works now. But if something affects our district, we want to be there from start to finish, whether the personalities in the room agree or disagree.
Thank you, Mr. Lattimore. Any other questions for the administrator? All right, I just have a couple things for you. First of all, I just want to say thank you to Steve, Justin, Lynn, Monica, Bill, and Lori for all the work they put in on the shared services plan. I can tell you the first Friday meeting at 3 o'clock, not everybody was thrilled to be in that room, but they created worthwhile discussion, and people walked away taking something away from each of those meetings. So thank you very much for all your hard work on that. I also want to thank all those elected officials for their work and being open-minded and having frank discussions and saying, this is where I see an opportunity and this is where we're going down the wrong road. I missed Health and Human Services because I attended City Council meeting to support the possibility of the turf at Falcon Park. I did meet with a couple counselors after that, and they were very positive on the project, which is a good note. And then finally, tomorrow morning, I am going to Rochester to meet with Tish James, who is a candidate for the Attorney General position. It's going to be hosted by Harris Beach, so land in the trust will definitely be one of the topics discussed. If you have anything that you want me to share or any information you would like me to bring back, please just send an email and I will definitely take care of that. So that's all I have, unless you have questions for me.
How was your trip?
Fantastic.
Great.
All right, we have no appointments and no communications or announcements, so we can get right into resolutions. Ways and Means.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Regular monthly resolutions 1A, 1B, have been through in committee and passed. I'd like to bring them up to the bundle.
Okay.
Second.
Can I have number 2 excluded?
You want to separate 1B?
Yeah.
Okay. So 1A, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. 1B,
Yeah. I thought Joe Yeah.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, Mr. Bennett.
Does he know?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Ways and Means has 4 resolutions. I'd like to bundle Ways and Means 1 and 2, unless anybody would like them separated.
I'd like to have number 2 separated. I'm sorry, Chairman.
All right, so we'll do WM1. Any discussion?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. WM2, and Mr. Lattimore, you have reached your limit.
Move it.
And we have a second for WM2.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a concern about starting pay for people. I mean, people who have been here for a number of years. I want to make sure that the compensation is correct. I know that all this stuff is public information. Anybody citizen can foil anything at any time, whether it's in Justin's office or my email or anybody else's. I don't know. I just want to make sure that we're fair and equal with all of our employees with the number of years they serve, and the steps have been put in place in civil service to compensate for that. So I want to make sure that nobody who comes in is compensated more than people who have been here for a number of years.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I'm still having a problem with the executive assistant terminology. I still am tied up with the CGR report, hasn't been approved by the legislature. The county's getting smaller, and yet we keep adding these new positions, and it's going the wrong way. I'm just having a problem with that terminology. Which is wrong? What's the problem with what we have now?
You want to address that one?
Sure. Well, the two parts to that question, Mr. Ripley. The first, related to the CGR, is the CGR report, I don't think, was ever meant to be adopted as a unified report. It was because it was a series of separate recommendations. It was really, it was one consultant's observations of the things that they thought, and it presented a menu of options for you to consider, some of which I've recommended and focused on. Now, as it relates to this resolution, my office has an administrative assistant position that's vacant. I've proposed modifying that into an executive assistant position. That's the gist of this proposal. The duties and the qualifications were tweaked from the administrative position, but it's a create and fill and abolish. So it's not a new position insofar as that it's abolishing the vacancy that's in my office.
Does that mean that the salary is going to increase as well?
The salary is comparable to what the previous incumbent was making. Mr. Foley, it's absolutely the case. The grade is different. The administrative assistant was a grade 4 position. The executive assistant is a grade 6 position. The salary of what the administrative assistant was making at the time of departure is the same or within a couple $100 of what the entry-level salary for the executive assistant position is.
Ms. McNabb-Coleman.
Oh, thank you. I wasn't sure if I touched on this in June Ways and Means. To kind of piggyback on Mr. Lattimore and Mr. Ripley's statements, I am overall disappointed at the process in which this has been unfolded. I ultimately support you having an executive assistant, and I see in your plan that you gave to us in your memo, it makes sense. I just feel the way this has been rolled out, I think it left the communication to be a lot more to be desired of this. So I am ultimately supporting this, as I said, but I have had some difficulty understanding and have had to sift through the information. And I do feel as though, we don't want to get involved with personnel issues per se, but I feel disappointment in the way this has been handled, so.
Mr. Foley?
Okay, so I voted against this at Ways and Means, as we know, because the way it's presented to us, I believe to be misleading. You say that the salaries are comparable, because the way you are structuring it is your current incumbent is roughly, let's say, $49,000 salary. The new person that you would hire, so the previous one would be a grade 4. The new person that would be hired would be a grade 6, and that would be $50,000. So you're saying roughly comparable. However, what has been a sticking point between you and I from when you presented this was that if you hire anybody with any experience, they're going to get a percentage increase, 1% increase for each of those years. So it will not be comparable. Therefore, there will be a budget impact, not only on this year, but for 2019, which has not been accounted for in any way that I can tell from your analysis. I really do think it's misleading to present something to us like this. Now, if you would say, yes, I'm going to hire an executive assistant instead of administrative assistant, we do need to pay them a little bit more. Here's my vision for that, and please support this, then I probably would have been all for it, Justin. But not when you keep saying to people that it's comparable salary, when, I mean, unless you are planning on hiring someone with 0 years of experience and not giving them a raise, which I just can't see from the conversations I've had with you, I think it's an unfair assessment of the situation. That's why I was against it at Ways and Means, and that's why I'll be against it tonight.
Mr. Foley, I think that's exactly how I presented it. And every resolution for every hire that's presented to you for any position includes the minimum salary for the grade. So this conversation about where they're going to be hired, whether it's based on experience or not, every single resolution is done consistently the same way. And that's how it was done before I got here, and that's how it's been done for the last 6 months since I've been here. There hasn't been any hiding any information. I presented a memo that said, this is how I want to align the position, and this is why, and this is the vision. And I've talked about it even before that with several of you. So I've tried to share the vision and be as transparent as I can with that information. And if you objected to the language of saying there's no impact when there could be a minimal impact, then I apologize for misspeaking. But I was in no way trying to mislead you.
Mr. Peters, then Mr. Foley.
So, Mr. Administrator, just looking for a little clarification on this. So there are steps involved from...
No, we don't have any steps in our positions outside of the union contracts. So we don't have steps.
This salary will remain the same for the duration of the appointment?
It would, whatever the starting salary is, it will be subject to whatever raises are given to non-bargaining, whether they're I don't know how... If there's no increase, then there'd be no increase. If there's a % increase, then there would be a % increase.
So, but this is, am I correct in understanding that the salary that the incumbent was making was at the top of their...
The incumbent had been in that position for a long time.
Okay. So, but the salary, the pay grades are different.
The pay grades are different.
So, I guess I'm just trying to make, is there expanded duties?
Yes, there are expanded duties, expanded qualifications. The where the incumbent was I think like 49.9, and where the entry level the base for grade 6 is like 50,200 or 50,300. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was within literally a couple $100. So when I said there was no impact, I was talking about those numbers. And Mr. Foley is absolutely correct. If we hired somebody with 10 years experience and we gave them the 10%, well, then there would be a $5,000 impact. I don't know, I don't know what range we're going to hire at, but that base salary is in every resolution, and Mr. Russell can confirm that. That's how they do every resolution, is they put the base salary in, but that base salary isn't always what people are hired at. The current policy and this can be changed if the legislature wishes us to look at it. The way hiring has been done since I arrived and previously was that the department head and the HR administrator can approve up to a 10% increase based on experience.
It just doesn't follow. How are they the same? Just trying to get my mind around how a 4 and a 6, it seems to me at some point the 6 has to be compensated more than the 4.
Well, a 4 with many, many, many years of experience and longevity
So then the
payments.
6 given the 6 with many, many years of experience will be compensated at a greater.
No more than 10%.
So,
Mr.
don't
Foley.
feel- This is the issue where I think it's a little bit misleading, because what he's asking is the grade 4, the starting salary of a grade 4 for this position for the administrative assistant is $42,000. If Justin was going to rehire a person at that position, it would be $42,000. The new person that would be coming in as the executive assistant would be hired at $50,000. So we're talking about roughly $8,000 increase here. Not only that, if you were to give the $42,000 the 10% increase, you would only be talking about $46,000. There would be savings there. This is what I'm trying to say. I think it's misleading to a certain degree. I mean, I think it's important to know that it's not, he's comparing it to the top of the 4 to the bottom of the 6 when he's talking about how the salaries are comparable, and it's not. That's, I think, my point here.
It's a fair point, and you're right that I did that. No.
Mr. Whitman?
Can we not refer to the pay grid system that we put in place to see how this is going to go up over the next few years?
The pay grade system doesn't account for any increases. The non-bargaining increases are determined by the legislature through the budget process, correct?
I thought that was all about pay increases.
Mr. Bennett?
I'd like to call the question.
All right, questions called on WM2. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Yeah, let's do a roll call vote.
Dr. Whitman?
No.
Andy Dennison?
Yes.
Ben Vitale?
No.
Chris Peters?
No.
Paul Bigbee?
No.
Aileen McNabb Coleman?
Yes.
Steve Batman?
Yes.
Joe DeForest?
Yes.
Charlie Ripley?
No.
Joseph Bennett?
Yes.
Elaine Daly?
Yes.
Timothy Lattimore?
No.
Michael Didio?
No.
Brian Foley?
No.
Pat Mahoney?
Yes.
Defeated.
Mr. Bennett?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Ways and Means 3 was pulled, and I'd like to offer up Ways and Means 4, which was added at Ways and Means, amending Resolution 499-10.
Move it.
Second.
Any discussion on WM4? If not, Mr. Ripley?
It requires a 2/3 vote to.
Again, I'm still stuck on the CGI report stuff. I know that we've been pushing for the compliance officer appointment or whatever. I'm still having a problem with this, and I can't support it.
Any other discussion? Ms. McNabb Coleman?
Yeah, I also spoke about this last month. You know, this position was not previously stipend for. Also, I have an issue with there being a lack of a job description. I know the resolution lays out vague terms about some of the responsibilities that this person would hold. I would like to make a motion to table this until we get more information.
Second it.
Second.
We have a motion to table. Any discussion on the motion to table? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Lattimore?
Is there a timetable that this has to be filled by?
You've already filled it, you just haven't compensated for it.
Mr. Dennison?
There's been a lot of discussion about, job description and stuff like that. And, we've had this in the past too, talking about confidential secretaries and, now going from administrative assistant to executive and all this. Can we get, and I'm not saying this in a bad way to anybody here on the 6th floor, but can we get descriptions of what people's positions, duties are here on the 6th floor? So we, Mr. Lattimore always talks about is everybody compatible as far as, like talking about Sheila and Amanda's positions versus confidential secretaries and all that. I don't think sometimes we know what everybody's job descriptions, job duties are. But yet we sit here and have these discussions and arguments about it. So is there a way to get something about?
Mr. Russell, can you pull something together?
Sure. Specs are all important.
Yeah.
So,
And can you also add the legislators' job descriptions in there as well? Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Bennett?
No, that's it, thank you.
All right, Health and Human Services.
Okay, Health and Human Services has 24 resolutions tonight. HH1 through HH23 were discussed at committee. HH23 was brought the night of the meeting, which is a resolution simply supporting the City of Auburn's 2018 consolidated funding application for the acquisition of land for lake protection. And HH24 was added yesterday due to new information that came forward related to establishing a sick bank for a health department employee facing some serious health issues. So unless there's a desire to separate them out individually, I'd like to entertain a motion to vote on first HH1 separately, and then bundle HH2 to HH24.
I'd like to separate them all and do a roll call.
All right, so we're going with HH1 first. Any discussion on HH1? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried.
Mr. Chairman, can you let the record reflect that I abstained from HH1?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, then we'll offer HH2 through 24.
Move them.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Those are carried. Anything else? Okay, Government Ops.
Mr. Chairman, Government Operations had 2 past resolutions. I offer them up as a bundle unless anyone would like singled out.
So we have GO2 and GO3.
GO2, GO3.
Move them.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, if I could just say GO1 was regarding the lease agreement on County House Road in the county nursing home. That wasn't exactly ready yet, so we did not have a motion, but we did discuss it a little bit. I think it's being worked on. GO4 turned into Ledge 1, I believe. That was for fundamentally the county website, where it's going to be funded. So we'll vote on that later.
All right. Thank you. Planning. Oh,
I was going to back up on
Okay.
on him. Just, Fred, quick question. Any update on that discussion, or Justin, I mentioned this one of you last month about, I believe it was in July or August of last year, a resolution that came before us, or discussion of a monthly rent that was talked about and agreed upon. Is there any surface to that paperwork anywhere?
The resolution did not pass last year.
For the $6,000 per month?
That's correct.
Okay. And when was that? Do you remember?
What was that? I can look it up, Mr. Pinckney. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you.
I'll find out.
All right, jumping right into planning then.
Mr. Chairman, planning has 2 resolutions before you. Both have been through committee and seek approval. I would offer as a bundle.
Move it.
Second.
Any discussion on PL1 and PL2? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Public Works.
Mr. Chairman, Public Works has 6 resolutions, all have been through committee and passed. I would like to offer them as a bundle unless anyone would like one singled out.
Move them.
Like PW4 single?
All right.
All
Just
right.
I will offer a bundle minus PW4.
So we have PW 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. Any discussion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I have a question, if I can. Did we get a dollar amount for PW2?
Yeah, we did.
You got that?
Over Blackstone. Did we finally get the?
Yeah, Bill, what was the number for Stewart's Corner?
George Corner's contractor was Silver Line Construction, $517,542. There were two other bids. One from Economy, which is higher at $546, and Slate Hill Contractors at $638.
All set?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I apologize for this, but I keep forgetting to ask. That project is going to be done when?
We expect that project to be finished this fall before snow.
Okay, but not until, okay, good. Yeah, I go down that road periodically, forgetting, and there's no quick way. If you commit yourself, it's a maze. So, thank you. I'll try to remember.
Put a note on your dash.
I know.
Mr. Whitman?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to offer up PW4, authorization to authorize the chair of the Cayuga County Legislature to extend a professional services agreement with Dashno's Town Budget Service and amending the budget.
I was just curious as to what detail that was on that. I mean, I'm not understanding what that is, I guess. I'm sorry.
That's the same question.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
We got a mo-
Well, I'm sorry.
I have a question on it.
Well, let's get Paul taken care of first, and we'll come back and get you.
Your question, Mr. Pinckney?
I just didn't understand the resolution. It's to
Sure.
extend a professional
Sure.
service agreement on the town's budget service, amending budget?
Yes, it's extending and funding Bill's contract through the end of the year while we finalize the creation of the Public Works Department and recruit a superintendent
And it's through December of this year?
through December 31st, not to exceed December 31st.
Mr. Ripley?
It was my understanding that when we hired him for 3 months,
We hired him for 6 months.
6 months,
Yes, sir.
at $6,001.
Yes, which is roughly equivalent to what, and the reason we haven't filled the general foreman role. This is basically what we're funding the position out of.
Okay, it was also my understanding that we hired him to provide up-to-date training for our appointed highway superintendent.
Correct.
From what I've been seeing, he's actually an assistant to the administrator.
Well, that's the title that we gave him. He's a consultant, special assistant to the administrator for highway, and he's assisting Dan in operations and training and budget preparation, the road plan that was prepared, the road condition survey that was prepared, and will be a very strong asset as we go into preparing what is one of the largest areas of our budget.
I'm not trying to doubt what Mr. Dashall's qualifications are. He's obviously done a fine job wherever he came from. I'm having trouble with, it looks like what we're leading to is he's going to end up being our highway superintendent, and Mr. Dashall, or Mr. Bowman is going back to South End County. I'm confused.
Mr. Dashnaw is not a candidate, will not be a candidate for our highway or public works positions, however we finally settle on it. He's retired and doing this as a consultant, and will be concluded by December 31st. But he's not interested in the job. In fact, his wife would be happy if he stopped now. but we would leave quite a hole in our operation.
Mr. Lattimore?
Mr. Chairman, is this in our purview to discuss this? I mean, like you mentioned before that, you know, to HR that we should know what our job is. Is this part of our job to ask that question?
It's absolutely fine, Mr. Lattimore.
It's okay?
But if we're going to examine all job descriptions, we should examine our own as well. That's all I'm saying.
And this was...
It was discussed last month as well.
Well, that's not, I don't want to have any tension there.
And just to follow up, this was, we discussed a couple different courses of action with the legislature last month, and this was the direction the legislature directed me to move forward in.
Yeah, that's right here. So I'll call a question.
Thank you. PW4, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
3 opposed. All right, Mr. Whitman, anything else?
No, sir.
All right, Judicial and Public Safety.
Did we do 5 and 6? Yes, we did. JPS has 6 resolutions that have all been through committee, so I'd like to bundle them, but we'll see.
Move them.
Second.
I have a question.
Do you want one separated, or do you have a question?
No, I have a question.
Okay.
Do we have the dollar amount for that contract?
6,000 a month. 6,000 a month. You're talking about the one that PW4?
No, 3.
Oh. Oh, the Motorola, you're talking about the Motorola agreement?
He's talking about JP3.
Yeah.
Oh, do you want JP3 separated?
No, you don't, there's not a dollar amount because it's a change of contract. The state wouldn't give us a lump sum, index lump sum contract anymore, so we're going to a time and materials contract, in which they'll pay us a percentage of the contract, and then the rest will be based on the reports that we submit based on the number of miles and the materials that we use, which part of the training that Bill will be providing to our team is how to track and monitor salt usage, roads plowed, and things like that.
Any discussion on JP 1 through 6? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. Anything else from Judicial and Public Safety?
God, no.
All right, we do have Ledge 1, which was added at Ways and Means, authorizing the chairperson of the legislature to sign the Civic Plus service and license agreement for website redesign and hosting and amend the 2018 budget.
Move it.
Second.
Round 3.
Let the good
All right, we
times
have a motion
roll.
and a second. Any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Batman?
Yeah, I just want to thank the Elaine Daly for coming up with this solution to the problem. What this will effectively do is take savings that we've recognized this year with the leasing of the sheriff's vehicles and apply that to the cost of the web, so that the impact on future years' budgets is minimized. So it's a good solution, and thank you, Elaine.
Any other discussion? Ms. McNabb Coleman?
I just wanted to piggyback on that and say, without that solution presented, I was not ready to support this, and understanding now fully where this money is coming from and that it's not going to be taken out of contingency of the fund balance, I am willing to support this.
Mr. Whitman? Thank you.
I hope that a lot of the citizens of the county will hopefully be able to look at this new website someday before it's outdated, but I'm not holding my breath. I know I do not have access to high-speed internet where I live. And I think we're kind of putting the cart in front of the horse. Our website functions. I use it all the time. Sure, we could have a better one. Seen a lot worse ones, too. I don't think now's the time.
Mr. Ripley?
I agree with what Amy just said, and Amy was together.
I use the
But
library.
I'm still having a problem with the county not approving the best possibility for an internet system for the people of the Cayuga County, where you are cutting them out of the picture and not allowing them to use the website.
Any other discussion on Ledge 1? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
3 opposed. Oh, 4.
Aye, 4.
Can we do a roll call, then we'll know? We'll see which way the half hands go then.
You want to go?
All right, I guess we'll do a roll call vote.
Dr. Whitman?
No.
Andy Dennison?
Yes.
Ben Bailey?
No.
Chris Peters?
Yes.
Paul Pinkney?
Yes.
Amy McMahon Coleman?
Yes.
Keith Beckman?
Yes.
Jody Forrest?
Yes.
Charlie Ricker?
No.
Joseph Bennett?
Yes.
Elaine Daly?
Yes.
Timothy Lattimore?
With the proviso that we do broadband, yes?
Michael Video?
No.
Ryan Foley?
Yes.
Pat Mahoney?
Yes.
Pass.
All right. So that is it for Ledge 1 and 2. I would entertain a motion for executive session for real estate acquisition and a personnel.
We didn't do Ledge 2 yet.
Sorry, we'll do Ledge 2 now.
Move it.
Second.
All right, any discussion on Ledge 2?
Yeah, Mr. President.
Mr. Batman?
Yeah, might offer a modification. In the first resolved, it says that the legislature, having reviewed the proposed services plan, hereby supports the proposals contained within the plan. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with that, since we haven't really explored the proposals, and it was indicated in the preparation, these in some respects are ideas that will be pursued. And so I'm wondering if we could modify that to say that the legislature accepts the plan and recommends that the rest of it the same, recommends that the shared services panel approve. So that the modification would be, and strike the word supports the proposal and add the words accept the plan.
I'll second that. First resolve.
All right, we have a motion on the floor.
Because it doesn't matter.
I second.
All right. Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Whitman?
I'm just curious, what we want to change the title to then, Keith? Take that support out and say that we, or
They don't need us.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that, Mr. Whitman. Maybe just if I could also add then the resolution regarding the Cayuga County Shared Services Plan.
Mr. Chairman, check to make sure the second is in agreement with that. Before we go.
Are you okay with that, Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Dennison?
I agree with where Keith's going with this. I just don't, because, I mean, I don't agree with everything in there. So it's hard for me to say I agree with this plan, the way it's worded, but I don't know if the way Keith and Tucker just worded it, or even,
So
does our lawyer have any suggestions?
It's still in draft form, so we could probably review it after the public
Should we put that
hearings.
in there as draft form?
Our obligation was to submit it to the legislature prior to August 1st.
Yep.
What the legislature does with it is the
Yeah, we
legislature.
gotta do something.
The legislature certainly could take the month, make some recommendations, and issue a report by majority vote, is what the state law provides. But the legislature's next meeting is after.
Right,
after
yeah,
the-
we do.
Well, I'm
This
not
would
trying
fulfill
to-
our obligation with those changes?
I'm not trying to kill it.
Okay.
I mean, can we put the words in there in draft form or something? I mean, it just makes it sound like we're passing it the way it is.
May I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Dennison, I think the important thing to recognize is that there's nothing in this plan that is binding, right? This is a plan of ideas that we're submitting to the state, and to the extent that any of them materialize and require your approval, and then can be submitted for savings, then they will be.
Why can't we say that it's ideas? These ideas.
can amend it however the legislature sees fit. I was just, responding to the question, to the comment that didn't necessarily support everything in there. And we also recognize, and the state law provides for, that not every community is going to support everything in there. And what's asked is that any community that doesn't support anything withdraws from any particular plan. And so we structured our proposal in a way that was proactive so that each chose which they wanted to participate in up front. So that way, I think that we'll have the support we need to pass the panel.
Done.
I'd like to call the question on the amendment.
All right. All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Mr. Dennison. All right. Now, Ledge 2 as amended. Any discussion?
Can I call the question on it?
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Get the 3.
I didn't like the amendment.
You got him, Didio, Dennison,
Sorry.
Whitman.
We're supposed to still have our hand up.
All right, now that we got Ledge 2 out of the way, I would entertain a motion for executive session.
Second.
Real estate acquisition and personnel issue, and invite Dr. Duran in.
I was on a different one.
Yeah, we've got personnel and we've got...
The sheriff, good to see you, Sheriff.